Hey everyone, it's Kathy Cronin from Broaken Roads, and I'm here today for Amy Howard at home to show you how to use the color transfers. I'm going to take something that looks like this, which is just an unfinished wooden tray. I bought a set of these, 5 of them, for about 20 bucks on Amazon, and they all fit inside of each other. I'm going to show you how to transform this into something that looks like this. So I also have done a couple of other ones in the lighter vein, so they are a little bit more worn on the light end of the color spectrum, but this one in particular we're going to do the darker one using gel stains and the color transfers along the middle that I've already cut out. Now when you get your color transfer sheets, they come on a big piece of paper attached to the paper, and then you have to just cut out the ones that you want. And so I have some leftovers here. They're also peonies, but they're in the darker vein. So if you can see these, I'm going to use them on a different project. But for this one in particular, I saved the light ones all the way down from the bud to the full bloom. This is what I'm going to use on the tray. Really pretty soft, kind of a beige pink. Love it. So we're going to use these on this particular tray and then have it ready to go to use in a home. I think these would be great for things like your toiletries for a guest bathroom. You could set them on a table. Some people like to just hang them on the wall. They're just really cool. Put little knickknacks across the bottom of them. So use your imagination and place them where you like. So let's get started on this, starting with the gel stain. Okay, I want to show you here how I'm thinking about placing these on this particular tray. So I've cut all these out like I said earlier, and then I'm just sort of laying them out to get myself kind of a better understanding of how I want them placed once this piece has been actually gel stained and it's ready to go. So this is just kind of my idea. And moving forward, we'll probably adjust them a little bit along the way. So let's get started with the gel stain. So we're going to get started applying the gel stain now, and I have selected the Hazel Mahogany for this particular tray. And I'm using Amy's 1.5 inch chip brush. It's very thick. I love these brushes for almost all my applications. They're really, really easy to use in my hands, and they seem to just apply all of the types of products that I'm putting on very smooth and consistently. So they're my favorites. So the gel stain is water-based. It does wash out with soap and water. Very simple to use, and it dries quickly because it is water-based. So I'm just going to apply a little bit here onto my brush. Make sure I've already stirred this up, and make sure you stir it up first before you actually put it on any of your pieces. I'm just going to wipe a little bit off here and then show you just how well this goes on. It's very simple. I like to apply it and then I will run over it quickly just with a little towel just to pull off, like a lint-free rag, just to pull off any of the excess. Now this is an unfinished wooden tray, so obviously you're going to see more grain than if it was already previously stained or it had been painted. So we're just getting this applied, and then we're going to wipe it off, wait for it to dry. Probably will be dry in about 20 to 30 minutes depending on your humidity. At that point in time I will start applying the color transfers and show you how that's done. Now once you get your first coat on, you can go back over and just touch up any spots that you missed with your brush. Make sure that it's evenly applied to all of the spaces. And then also, especially on a wooden tray that has a handle, make sure that you get the inner portion of this handle in here, you know, up and down inside of that section, so that when you flip it over, you also see that it is actually covered right under here. So I also do the bottom as well, just to be consistent. It looks more professional. And while I'm talking about that, even when I'm painting a table or a cabinet or something like that, if I lay it over on its back and I can see under spaces that are a part of the actual front-facing pieces, I'll usually paint those or stain those as well, so that it gives it a nice finished look. So that's the kind of the same thing we're doing right here on the bottom of this, is just want it to have a really nice, cohesive, professional look when you're done. Even if you were giving this as a gift to someone, you know, after you have it all completed, you could even stencil a note on the back of it or just a date or something, just to let them know that it was handmade with love by you. So we get this applied and then wipe it off, let it dry as well, and then start on the color transfers. Okay, I'm getting ready to place the color transfers on here. The gel stain has dried and I've gone over and evenly applied it to all of the space and the back. So we're ready to go. Just going to set these on here like I had talked about earlier, just to make sure I have them where I think I want them to be. I'll have to turn this around for you here in just a minute so that you can kind of see what it looks like when it's not upside down. So here we go. And I'm basically doing this in sort of a format that shows the growth of the flower, the bloom process. That's why I particularly set them in this order, like that. Okay, I've placed one of my color transfers on here to kind of get myself centered. I want to show you how this works. What we're going to do is take this white piece of cardboard off the back here. So you have this piece in front of you, and then you're going to center it on, place it where you believe it needs to sit. I'm going to press down really, really well. And you can take a plastic spatula, maybe a plastic scraper or something like that. I prefer that over metal to place these transfers on. And then this is, in particular, I'm using a wood stir stick that I got from Amy Howard. So, you know, you just pick whatever tool you're most comfortable with. And then you want to start pushing your transfer on by pressing down gently across this filament paper, getting all the edges really, really well, and making sure that it releases onto your piece. Now, if you pull it up and you see that it's still sticking to the filament paper, you can push it back down while it's sitting like this, and then rub back over it again and pull more of it off, you know, put it onto your piece. But if you happen to just mess it up and you don't get the whole thing on there, you can always go for like a worn, grungy look, and then that way, if it's partially missing when you go to apply like some distressing to it like this, if there was something missing in here, it would just naturally look like it had worn off. So there's always ways to utilize whatever outcome that you have. You just have to embrace those mistakes. They're just as beautiful as perfection. So, and none of us are perfect, so let's just do our best here and move forward. So I've got this on. I'm going to try to lift it, see where we're at, see if I've got it coming off onto the piece the way that it should be. Okay, once you have everything pushed on there very well, you know, you just need to go around to those edges and make sure that everything's been covered. When you start to lift, if you see that there's a piece that's, again, stuck to the paper still and not to your piece, just push it back down and push over it again so that you can get it to adhere to this. So just take your time with it, just go over it a little bit at a time, and then when you're finished, you can lift and there we go. So we'll do this with each one of these going down the piece, and then we'll do another application over this to protect it, and then I'm going to age it so that it looks more like this one here. Okay, at this point, if you really just like the transfer and you didn't want to do anything else, you could just actually put matte sealer over this, wax over it, whatever you wanted to do to seal it up, and you could literally be done. But I definitely want to make this look a little more aged, I guess, and then, you know, have this blend in a little bit better rather than popping straight out like this. So I'm going to do a few more things to it before I'm finished with it. So a little announcement about about paint colors. I actually really love all the options that we have for colors with Amy Howard. And the best thing that you can do if you don't have this already is to get one of Amy's color guides. If you order this, it actually has like the paint chips on these pages. You can get one of these and have it at home, and you can pick your colors based upon real paint chips and what you want to choose to blend in with your pieces. So this is a wonderful, wonderful thing to have. In fact, I have two of them. I've probably worn this one out almost. Anyway, if you don't have one of these, I recommend that you get one. So for this particular piece, there's this deep, deep green in here, and I have Cherbourg, which is a beautiful deep green color. I'm going to use this, and I bought a sample because I don't use a lot of this particular color. I use Donovan green a lot and Lulu, but this one I thought, well, I'll just try a little bit. So I grabbed a sample size one, which is great if you're not really sure what you want to do yet. You can pick out the samples. And then when I opened it up, I just added some plastic wrap over the top before I screwed the lid back down so that it would be easier for me to open later. So a little trick if you don't know how to do that. So on this one, I'm going to do a little bit of paint on this edge right here before I do a full treatment over the rest of it. So for that, I'm going to take Amy's Artist Brush. I love these brushes. They are very, very soft and fine and have a lot of control. So I'm going to take just a little bit of her paint, kind of push it off here, and then I want to go around and just add a little bit to this tip edge like this. So when I'm done with it, this won't be bright green. It's going to be, it's going to have some more like a glaze or a little bit of a gel stain, watered down gel stain over the top of it. Maybe even some dark wax, so it will blend in better and it won't be an obvious green. But I think this will actually kind of pull it together a little bit more, make it look a little more finished. And remember what I said in the beginning, that you have the option, like if you go online, I just went to Amazon, you can get 5, 7, 3 of these, however many you want, different sizes that all fit into each other if you want to make a set, if you want to break them apart and do them for special gifts for people, or if you want to just drop off something, you know, on a neighbor's doorstep. What a great way to do that is by having a nice little handmade tray to surprise them with. Okay, my green edging has now dried, and I think what I'm going to do next is take my Selznick gray and do a little dry brushing across here just to kind of give it a little bit of a lighter lift underneath before I apply a final coat of a dark glaze or dark gel stain over the top of it, just to give it some depth. So all I'm going to do, and this is just a can that's got a little bit left in it. I save every little last drop of my paint. It's precious. I'm going to add a little bit of this paint to a piece of cardboard and just knock it off. This is what we call dry brushing. Knocking off all the excess, offloading it onto the cardboard, and then I'm going to go ahead and take it and then just dry brush, run it across my piece kind of like this. So it's a little bit hard to see, but you're just getting a little bit of a dry brush look here. So it's going to make it feel a little bit warm. Here's a good example right here. See how that's kind of lighter now compared to this side. We're going to do this as well. Just dry brushing across to give it a little bit of a lighter look. And then I'm going to also do this in the middle across the piece too. Just as if it had been used and worn down a little bit. A whole lot of love. I like dry brushing because it actually does just give you this chance to add some depth anywhere you want on a piece. I mean, a table, chairs, dresser, anything that you want before you add a glaze or a final coat of wax. So just a tiny bit here so that it's not all dark, dark, dark brown. And in this case, I'm not going in any one specific direction. I want it to be a little bit of a random hit here and there. And then, of course, the edges as well. Okay, so it's already looking just a little bit lighter, a little bit worn, and it is pretty much dry, so I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing to the back, to the bottom of it, just for consistency's sake. Okay. All right, so now I am ready to add a glaze wash over this that I'm going to use gel stain with to give it all kind of a uniform feel and darken it down like this one over here. For the glaze, I've decided I'm going to mix a little bit of the gel stains that I have here, Hazel, Mahogany, and then the gray. So this is Windsor gray. And so what that means is I'm going to use a little bit, like 1 part each of these two, plus I'm also going to add in a part of Glazed Over into this cup. So it's basically just a little bit of that, equal parts, probably in here. I don't have much, I would say maybe a teaspoon, and then about the same, about half a teaspoon of the Hazel Mahogany and about a half a teaspoon of the gray. So I have these in here together and just mixing them up in the cup. So it's a little bit lighter than the actual Hazel Mahogany. It has kind of a gray tinge to it. In fact, I might even add just a little bit more in here, just to pull a little bit more gray out. Okay, and then the magic ingredient of water, just a little bit of water to thin this down. About a teaspoon of that in here to create my glaze. I have found often that if I apply a finish and I'm still not happy with the results, I just keep going. So, you know, everybody does it a little bit differently, but for me, that is my best approach, is just to keep on going until I get it to where I like it. So now I have this all mixed up and it's ready to go. And to place this on the piece, the most important thing for me to do is just to load my brush and then start pushing it across the piece. And then I'm going to wipe it off with a clean, dry, lint-free rag. So this is just the process. You can see what it's doing is sort of darkening over the color transfers and blending them in a little bit. And then I'm going to just dab it. A lot of times I will wipe my glaze, but in this particular case, I just want to dab it so that I don't take too much of it off in certain areas, because I definitely want this to look a little bit worn. So I have this all applied inside here. I'll also do the outside as well. And then I'm just going to pull this particular piece down here, this little green flower. I want it to stand out a little bit more, so I did pull more off of that particular location. And then I'm just going to dab across this so that it sort of removes those brush marks, but yet still looks worn and old. And then after this is dry, I'll probably go over it with light and dark wax to seal it and bring out a little bit more depth. You can let this dry and then do another repeat of the glaze if you want to. Whatever your tastes are, whatever your liking is, just to keep going over it until you get the feel that you want or the wornness that you want. So this is quite lovely. And as soon as this dries, I think I'm going to add one more coat to it, just to get it a little bit darker. I think I want this just a tad bit deeper. Okay, I've been dabbing on just a little bit at a time some extra of the glaze just to keep this dark, and you can tell now it's really blending in nicely and it's looking aged, and with this light dry brushing underneath it, it gives it some depth. So when this is all finished, I will probably go over it just with a wax to protect it. Now the glaze has a natural protection in it, so I really wouldn't need to do anything at all, but I think just because it might get used for, you know, carrying items or placing items on decorations, that I want to just give it a little extra protection. So we'll probably just wax this after it's completely dry. Okay, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I don't think I want to add like light wax and dark wax to it. I think it looks great. So the only thing that I'm going to do at this point is to add Mind Your Own Beeswax all over it just to seal everything in. And then I'll let that dry. You're supposed to wait at least about 20 to 30 minutes for it to come to tack. You know, maybe up to 2 hours, just depends on the humidity in your area. And then outside of that, for me personally, I just prefer to wait overnight, but with a small piece like this, I could probably wait a couple of hours and then buff it out. So all you need to do is just put the Mind Your Own Beeswax onto a piece of cardboard. Once this goes onto the cardboard, then you're going to take your brush and run it through it like this, and just get your brush, you know, filled, saturated, but not too heavy, and then just lightly go over your piece. And then when it's all at tack, you can buff it out. And it'll give a nice little sheen without being shiny. And that's it. And then after that, you'll be ready to go out and hopefully maybe surprise somebody's front porch. That's what I'm thinking anyway. And there we go. Here we are at the end of our finished project. So here's my piece. Remember, this started out as just a regular plain pine unfinished tray that you can buy on Amazon. Remember, I said that you can get 5 or 7 of them, even in some locations, for about 20 bucks. So just go in there and search for something like that. I also think that this is a great opportunity to practice. So one of the things that is really, really important to me is taking the time to learn a skill or practice something I'm not comfortable with. Obviously, I've never done transfers before, so this was my first go around with something like this, and it had always intimidated me, but I don't feel that way anymore. I really actually enjoyed this, and I feel a lot of creativity coming on based upon the experiences that I've had. So I really liked it, and I like how these turned out. I like this old feel, this worn feel. Again, this one was the same way. These darker ones kind of, I lean towards them a little bit more. But also having the options for the lighter ones too. You can go any color, any direction that you want. This is just something that I ended up doing for a lighter feel. And you can even add splashes, specks of dark on here if you want them to look a little bit older too. You can add some sort of wax on the edges that has a sheen to it, or a little sparkle if you want to do something like that. But for me, this is my go-to. I just really like this feel, this sort of old, really beautiful, quaint feel. So I encourage you to try it out. Try out those color transfers and show your projects, and let's see what you guys have out there. Thanks for watching today. Y'all have a wonderful week.